Boundaries. So many people struggle setting them, only to be left feeling resentful, frustrated and annoyed. Conversely, we might set them, feel guilty and spend way too much time overthinking, backtracking and generally driving ourselves and others around us mad.
Not setting boundaries causes confusion, an imbalance of energy and more issues down the line. It's not fair on you, it's not fair on them. So in this episode, we discuss how to navigate this hot topic so you can live a more harmonious, happy, healthy life and inspire others to do the same. Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. We have Lola running around because it's actually lunchtime here and she's running around knowing that we've got lunch and she's not had any yet.
The reason we've done it at our lunch break is they've started heavy construction work in the room next door to ours.
In London.
I mean, ironic, we've been away for 7 months, but they've chosen now to start off building work. So we think they're on their lunch break, but if there is some hammering and thumping, apologies for that, hopefully there won't be. But yes, we are back in our London home.
We are. And, in England, the pubs opened up for outside serving yesterday, so that was interesting. We went down into Camden, didn't we?
We did.
And had a pint down there. That was lovely to see things come alive again, actually.
Oh, it's really nice to see people out, and you realise, just how much people have missed it. Just speaking to people in the pub garden and they're going, oh, it's our first pint out for 4 months or longer.
Well, I think because we've been away in Marbella, this is something that we'll hold our hands up to. We know from our clients and friends and family that it has been really brutal. But, other than 2 weeks in Marbella, we were able to go out, not necessarily at night, but we were able to go out and eat on terraces and drink on terraces and things. So it was really lovely to see how excited people got yesterday. I'm sure there was a few sore heads though.
I'm sure.
And we're back in the gym.
The other thing that opened was the gym. So we went to the gym before the pub. I'll put that in quickly, but we've done 2 gym sessions already, and even so we were training. We were lucky; we've only had 3 weeks out, and then we were training during that period with kettlebells and bands.
Oh, well, I gave myself some time off. Actually, you kept it up. I just my body needed a rest, so I just rested. I listened to my body and let it rest. Where you were doing bands and kettlebells.
Yeah, but even so, we're aching a lot today from yesterday's weights workout, which is good. I love that ache that tells you you've had a good workout.
I know, and it's really funny actually because we were saying to the lady that runs the gym that we go to here down in Hampstead, she was saying that actually people have got sore bodies from the gym, and I said people have got sore heads from the pub. So double sore heads yesterday.
Yeah. Going to be an interesting weekend, this one. So today we are talking about boundaries, because this is a big thing for a lot of people. Obviously, we're facing a situation now where many people have been quite isolated, and we're starting to reintroduce ourselves to the world. A lot of people are starting to filter back to work, to social engagements, and we recognise that there's potentially a lot of anxiety around that, having been effectively locked up for so long. But also, we might have forgotten, how to say no to things, how to set healthy boundaries. So this is something I've really struggled with in the past and still do struggle with. So it's useful for me selfishly, to just cover it off again and remind myself, why it's important to set healthy boundaries.
Repetition is mastery. It's interesting. We all have areas in our life where it's easier to set boundaries than others. Everyone does. I think just, between James and I in our relationship, I came into this relationship, I suppose, being able to create healthier boundaries than you did. But I have seen you massively grow. It's really, really nice to actually...
You're always saying no to me.
It's really nice to see, actually, we're going to cover this off. It's really, really nice to see someone that you love and care about actually setting healthy, loving, kind boundaries. Because actually, what we're going to dive into, when people don't set boundaries, it causes a lot of stress for them, but it's not just impacting them, it's impacting everyone around them. So if they're feeling frazzled, resentful, stressed, guilty, all those sorts of things, because they've said yes when actually they mean no, it's not just you that it negatively impacts. It is your work life, your relationships, and it is hard for people to see that, because for me, definitely, seeing James not necessarily set healthy boundaries with certain people in his life, I'm laughing because James and I know who we're talking about, but healthy boundaries in his life, it has impacted me to a degree. So it's a really beautiful thing to see him lovingly, firmly and healthily set boundaries now.
So I'd like to talk about my personal experience for a minute, if you'll indulge me. And it's, I think naturally quite a people pleaser, and I've always been scared of like hurting other people's feelings if I say no or I appear difficult. But what I've learned with the wisdom of experience is like you're actually putting yourself in a much more difficult situation, and you potentially end up hurting other people's feelings more because no one knows where they stand. So let me illustrate that. Someone asked me to do something, I really don't want to do it, but because I don't want to hurt their feelings or appear that I'll be like, oh yeah, okay. And by the way, if you're one of the askers, and we all ask people, listen to the answer you get. If someone's like, yeah, absolutely, they're probably keen. If they're like, okay, yeah, or I think I could, maybe give them a get out, because it could be they're just trying to go, that's what I used to do. But, when we go along with something that we're not really happy with, that other person doesn't really know that you're not happy. So they're like, oh, that's great. James was happy to do this. Now I'll ask this. And it's another level. And that goes on. And of course, I'm there trying to please them and not be difficult. So you go, yes. But what happens is that person doesn't know, because you haven't let them know, that they've massively crossed your boundary. And then what will often happen with me is like, it goes so far, then I'll just be up like, absolutely not, I'm now not doing that. But because it comes out the blue and it's so shocking, it actually causes more of a hurt and an upset than if at the initial stage it's been like, you know what, thanks for asking me that, but right now that's not going to be the right thing for me, or a similar kind of answer. So it can be really hard to set boundaries, to say no to people. I'm still learning the power of no, but it really, really does give you so much power, and it really is helpful to both parties involved, because then everyone knows where they stand.
Absolutely. And I think because everyone's boundaries are different, we assume that people have the same boundaries as us. So we're probably waiting for that person to realise they've overstepped the boundaries, not actually being clear that they have. We're waiting. Sometimes we're absolutely livid, aren't we? We're like, how do they not know that they've overstepped the boundaries? Well, A, you haven't told them, and B, their boundaries are very, very different to yours. So why are you assuming that they understand yours if you don't explicitly say? And a lot of the time people, like I saw with James, I've seen with other people as well, we are really worried about what people think of us. But what people think of us is none of your business. It's about how you feel in your life, and whether you're saying yes with an open heart and a glad heart and a non-resentful heart and not feeling guilty, because otherwise there's a real imbalance of energy. And people, it's not just about you. Imagine what it feels like to have said yes to that person, but actually then them feeling that element of resentment or something not quite right, because we are energetic beings, right? So they will feel that something's off, but they can't quite put their finger on it. Does that make sense? It's not just about protecting you, it's about being fair to other people, because by you not setting your boundaries, you're not being fair to yourself or to other people. So it might be, when we're saying, this is one of my favourite phrases, when we're saying yes to everyone else all the time, we're saying no to ourselves. We're saying no to our self-respect. We're saying no to all the other things in our life that really are important to us, that we want to give our time to, but we're saying yes all the time to other things that we don't give time to, the things that are really important to us. We're not giving ourselves self-compassion, self-care. Our values are being misaligned and mistreated, and we are responsible for that. We are responsible for setting boundaries. People aren't doing anything to you when you are able to take responsibility for saying, you know what, that's my fault, that I haven't set a clear boundary there. It's my fault, my responsibility. That's where you regain your power and so much self-love and self-respect.
Yeah, I guess it all comes down to communication in the end, and we're all going to have different boundaries in different areas of our life and different situations and in different relationships. Your boundary around, money will be completely different to a stranger as it is to a really close friend or for family, for example. But all of us are going to have different boundaries based on basically it comes from our conditioning, mainly from our childhood, when the people in power, like our parents, our teachers, the kind of school culture we grew up in, will dictate like how well or not you're able to set those boundaries and communicate. And this is about communicating. This is not about being obstinate and being no all the time. Of course not. It's about communicating so everyone knows where they stand. It's like going, oh, you know what? I'm not really comfortable with that. And here's the thing as well, often when we say no, we'll feel that we need to explain why we're saying no.
Oh my goodness.
The explanation. Do you know what? A no is a no. We don't need to get it. It's part of the human condition. We always want an explanation for things. Someone asks you to do something, you don't want to do it, you just go, no.
This is really fascinating when you watch people do this. And I have seen James in there, and I've done this as well. I've done this as well. You say no. And then there's a split second where I'm watching and I'm like, now he's going to fill in the blanks. Now he's going to talk because he feels uncomfortable that he said no, and he feels like he needs to justify and explain. And this happens to everyone. And don't get me wrong, I'm not just pointing the finger. There are certain people in my life that I'm still not brilliant at this with at all. But you don't need to fill in the blanks. It's a what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? It is worrying that you're offending someone, but actually, if you take that longer term view that we were just talking about, being really, really clear is the best thing for every single person involved. So yeah, what we'd like to ask you is, can you recognise maybe someone in your past? Sorry, well, not in your past, it's in your present, but from childhood, like James was saying there. So it could be a parent, a sibling, someone at school, someone in your younger years. Maybe a parent used to say yes to everything. Maybe they were always worried about saying no, and you've adopted that same behaviour from them. Were they always saying yes when they wanted to say no? And then you saw how that impacted them and the resentment that it created and the guilt that's been passed down to you. Maybe those people in your life have made you feel guilty in the past for not being there for them in the way that they expect you to be. Again, what's that throwing up when I'm saying this? Are you recognising some of this stuff in your past? Maybe it was a relationship, a romantic relationship in the past where, you failed to put down boundaries and that person overstepped them, and you now find it really hard to understand what your real boundaries are because you got so used to being that people pleaser from that relationship that it's just carried on into every single other area of your life.
The thing is, Claire alluded to this earlier, we think we're doing the right thing by saying yes when we don't want to, we don't really mean it. But when we do that, we always, and you're going to relate to this, you feel a little bit of resentment. And depending on how far over your boundary is, that resentment could just be a little bit like, this is a bit inconvenient for me, to like, oh, I really, really resentful because I do not want to be in this position. The thing is, you said yes, you think you're helping. You're making yourself ill by holding on to that resentment yourself. And energetically, the other person will sense it on some level. They might not understand like quite why, or that it's come from that they've asked you something that you feel is actually quite inappropriate for you. But on some level, they'll feel it as well. So this is why we have to learn to start saying no powerfully when we need to.
Absolutely. So relate it to work. Let's just relate it to work. We're working environment right now. Is there someone at work that keeps pushing your boundaries, and you keep saying yes, yes, yes? They think you're happy doing that, but actually they're realising that you're a bit gnarly, a bit negative, or that's distilling down into your team or how you're behaving with other people, and they don't know what's creating that flow of energy. But actually what it's stemming from is you not taking responsibility and saying no to that person. And one other thing, you don't know what is going on for that person either. Maybe they have never been very good at setting their boundaries and they've always said yes to everyone. They are resentful and now they're acting out that on you. So don't assume that they're just being mean, They've got different boundaries, they've got different experiences. Maybe they're really struggling. Maybe their boss is really putting on them, and that's all they've ever known. So you saying, hang on a minute, that isn't the way we're going to operate now, is a really inspiring thing for people to see sometimes, especially not just in your team, but in your life. It's inspiring for people to say, you know what? I really respect myself. This is what someone that respects themselves looks like. And I'm going to inspire other people to do this in a very calm, very caring and very loving way.
I was going to say a really common one from work when you're working in a team environment is, if you get recognised as a star player, and we've actually helped coach people through this in the past, it's like, oh, you're a star performer, you're soaking up the pressure, you're getting through your workload, person X is really struggling. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you some of person X's workload. Great, for the manager that's doing that, they're solving a problem, the work's still getting done, they feel they're taking the pressure off person X because they're struggling. Person Y is not good at setting boundaries, so they're going, okay, taking it. What the manager's not seeing, they're getting home and they're sitting there in tears going, well, this isn't fair. Like, I'm actually being punished for being efficient and effective at my work by giving it even more workload to the point where I can't cope anymore. So
yeah, it really blurs the boundaries. It's not clear. It's not clear. And people actually would prefer you to be clear than woolly and muddy, and for it to be affecting other things. And this is the same in relationships, in friendships. If you're the friend that always pulls everyone together, that creates the social environment. We all create our own personalities and our own roles in friendship groups and relationships and communities. But if you're not happy with that, it's your turn to say, hang on a minute, I need to step back from this role and really work out whether that is serving me. Because it will create stress emotionally, mentally, and eventually physically. Physically, this is going to start showing up in your body. So we can't tell you how big a skill this is that you need to master to live a balanced, fulfilling life.
Shall we get on to some tips to help you here? We've got 7 tips.
We have. So number 1, do you want to do number 1, Mr. D?
Yeah, some ways it's being awareness. So start to recognise your own patterns and your own boundaries that you're comfortable with, and also how comfortable you are with the stretch on those boundaries. We'll have things that are definite, like yes or no. Have other ones that maybe we do have a bit of flex on, but learn your patterns. Be aware. Like actually stop and check and think, am I starting to feel that a little bit of resentment bubbling up when this person asked me this thing? Are they overstepping my boundaries? So, recognising your boundaries and the patterns is key, of course, for the first step.
Yeah, and actually, just on that, just recognising where it feels in the body. If it's like a definite yes, that's great. But sometimes you'll feel like that, your intuition. They say gut instinct, that's your intuition. If it feels in your gut that it's overstepping a boundary, you need to address that. And just on that as well, what can I tolerate? What are my boundaries? They might have changed in the last year. They might have changed since you were younger, but you've still got that role. So your boundaries can change. You are completely within your right to change your boundaries. Just because they've been fixed in a certain way, it doesn't mean to say you can't change them and do it lovingly. But also what I wanted to say is, of course, there are also things that you have to do. There's things that you have to do in life sometimes, and you might feel a bit resentful and a bit guilty about doing those things, but you have to do them. I'm talking to all the parents out there. But yeah, it's about knowing that these change, you can flex your boundaries, and actually you can relate them to people in a really, really kind way. One other thing we would say, number 2, is ask yourself what type of situations this comes up in and with who. What situations does this come up in all the time? Circumstances, and with who? And why do you think that is?
Remember, we are creatures of habit, and we are just repeating the same thing. So look for the patterns, look for the situations and the people that are triggering this, overstepping the boundaries, because there will be patterns there. Consider your past and your present. What might your past experiences be feeding into your present setting or failure to set boundaries? And be a bit compassionate with yourself about that. Is what was true back then necessarily true for you now? Sometimes we hold on to a boundary that's no longer applicable. On the flip side, sometimes we failed to set a boundary in the past that we now definitely need to. So, don't be afraid to have a look at that.
Ask yourself, we love this question all the time, but what's the negative cost on other areas of my life? What's the negative cost if I don't set this boundary and I carry on being resentful, making myself ill, mentally, physically, emotionally? What's the negative cost on other areas and other people in my life? Because it's not nice for other people to see you like that. And it's not setting the best example.
No. Tip 5, go deep. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? You know, we'll just get like a gut, oh no, I don't really want to do that. But it's worth sitting with it for a while and going, well, what's the reason that I'm really not happy with that? You know, sometimes it'll be obvious. It's just something that is just like so uncomfortable for you. But other times I'll be like, you know, what is that for me that is making me uncomfortable with that thing? And what can I learn about myself from that going forward? And how can I learn to set better boundaries from what I understand coming out of this?
Absolutely. Number 6 is give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to set these boundaries. Because in doing so, you will gain so much more self-respect. And you need to garner this. You're not just going to find your boundaries and self-respect. It is, James is going to say the final tip in a second, but it is about incremental steps, right? You need to cultivate that air of having those boundaries over time. It's not going to happen at once, but it starts with you being aware. That's where your power is. But giving yourself permission and saying, I am worthy of doing what is important to me, not just what is important to other people.
The final tip 7, is start small. And this is about having compassion with yourself. You know, if you've been used to saying yes a lot, starting to say no can feel really, really hard. I know that. So start practicing by just saying no to small things that don't really make you that uncomfortable, because it will help build your confidence. The other thing, you know, going back to the story at the start, from my experience of when your boundaries have been stretched so far, it maybe you just need to start advancing your boundary no's a little bit at a time, rather than leaping straight in with a like, no,
I've seen James do that. I've seen you do that.
And kind of detonating an atomic bomb of emotion. So start small and practice compassion with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just you practice a gentle no as well when a situation arises. So find someone or something that you kind of trust in that situation, or that person, that actually don't go for the big one. Maybe go for the smaller one where you can start practicing a gentle no, where you don't make an explanation, where you don't fill in the blanks, and you don't tremble with fear or fluff around the subject. And just, like I said, practice it on those people that will take it well at the beginning and then build up from there. You'll honestly find that your world doesn't fall apart. You don't lose good friends, and you're not shamed into a corner.
So true. You know, again, from my personal experience, you tend to catastrophize saying no. And here's the thing, sometimes someone asks you something and you'll wrestle with it. You know, I'm sure you can relate to this. Like, I've lain in bed at night going, oh, I've been asked to do this thing and I just so don't want to do it. But how am I going to say no? If I say no, you know, this will happen, that. And in the end, you just go, oh, you know what? I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. And it's fine. Everyone just moves on.
Yeah. Oh, everyone does. Weirdly, just everyone moves on. We make such a big deal out of all this stuff. And I think just to summarise and finish it off, you know, most of us don't witness people setting healthy, loving boundaries very well. Not all the time. And I think, just going back to an earlier point, it does inspire others to do the same, that it's safe to set boundaries. By you doing it slowly, even to that other person or in those circumstances, maybe they're waiting to see someone else do it. Maybe you're going to inspire them, and you can be the catalyst for helping others to live in harmony with their true nature. And that does start often with a beautiful, loving, gentle no, not a yes, because we'll reiterate it one more time for anyone at the back. When you say yes to everyone else and everything else, you are saying no to yourself. So, just leaving you with this question: what healthy boundaries are you going to set in the next week, and with who? Boom. We would love you to let us know. Absolutely. Let us know at team@themidlifementors.com. So team@themidlifementors.com. Let us know. There's your homework. Who you are setting healthy boundaries with, or what circumstances are you setting healthy boundaries with in the next week? Because if you don't take action, nothing's going to change.
Now, for those of you that don't know or haven't joined us yet, on a Sunday morning we do Coffee with Claire and James, which is like a live Q&A session.
Sunday morning at 10.
In our Facebook group, 10 UK time. And yeah, this one just gone. We got loads of new topics for future podcasts, so we've got a whole range lined up for you. But we'd love to see you in there as well. It's your place to come, to hang out with like-minded people, supportive, positive community. And of course, ask away, ask us questions, and just interact with us. So on Facebook, just look for the Midlife Mentors community, and you'll find us.
And I'll put it in the show notes. But it's the Midlife Mentors community. You'll see our little faces, and that's how you know it's us. And just jump in there. It's growing all the time. There's about 300 people in there now. It's really, really exciting, and we just love connecting with you all. So we are sending you lots and lots of love. And we will catch up with you next week. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah.